Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to November's Town Hall. I will apologize at the beginning of this that my voice may come and go as we talk, and some will perceive that as a benefit, I am sure. Tonight we're going to talk about, let's see if I can make this work. There we go. We're going to talk about the Water Authority, and we have several guests with us this evening to kind of give us a little more bench depth in terms of having that discussion. We have Kevin Stevens, our General Counsel. We have John Tierney and Jim Hawkeye from our PSAC committee, who has been advising us for a very long time on what needs to be done and not done with the water and sewer. And Scott Gibson, who is from Cumberland Securities, and we'll get into what he does as we get into the program here a little bit. I'd also like to welcome board members, if you didn't want to stand, to let people know who is here, both new and present board members. And then we have the staff who are here as well, Mitzi and Beth, myself. So we'll start this off by a little bit of a recap, and I won't get too far into that because all of you, and it's been my experience that anybody I've discussed this with has a different angle on their questions. An interesting side point, and I'm going to say this with the most sincerity I possibly can because I mean it. I have gotten nothing but really, really good questions, thought through. Not just quib questions, but really, okay, if that's true, then what about this? Really good stuff. And so I appreciate that. It tells me the community is actually listening and trying to contribute in ways, and hopefully you'll see some of your questions tonight as we go through those. In the previous town hall, I mentioned that we have a $31 million train coming at us over the next 5 years. And we have 3 at least options, and we talked about those options, so I won't bore you with going over those, but I'll give you the quick Cliff Notes version. One of them is I find a way to collect more money from you via the utility bill. And another one is to do a utility district. And the third one is to do a water authority. Now, the difference between a water authority and a utility district is one is managed by the county and one is managed by us. The utility district is required that the county approve it and set up the board and oversee it. The utility district is a private act that the community itself puts in place with a board, and that board would run that district. Also, the water authority is its own entity, a government entity now. It is no longer a part of the POA. In terms of what we want to do now, and the reason I've gone with the water authority is all the things I just mentioned. It allows us to control our water and sewer still. It opens us up to have be tax-free, that water authority would be tax exempt. It allows us to go out and get grants, matching funds, anything any other government entity, or excuse me, any other water and sewer entity in the state can get, we can get. It means that they would be governed by TDEC, and so it would be a government entity. The downside is that we have to convey all our sewer and water to that water authority, if that's a downside. We'll talk a little bit later about it, but one of the things that comes up with that, and one of the reasons we're having all these discussions, is to be able to convey the water and sewer, it requires 51% of the community to agree to that. Now, I know there has been just a ton of confusion over that particular point, and I want to try and hit that right at the beginning and be sure that everyone understands. There are several areas in our documents that lay out requirements for stuff to be done. Changing the documents themselves, meaning the government documents, has a set of criteria that you have to meet. This is in a totally different area, and it is specific to only conveying this particular type of function. And it only requires 51% of the community to agree to it. There's no notarization, there's no show me your ID, any of that sort of thing. We just need a signature. Whoa, sorry. And that's unique, completely unique in our documents and this particular process. So I don't want you to think that this is somehow being done differently. It is being done differently than we've ever talked about because it is a completely different process. Did I go far or something here?
Well, we went ahead.
Oh, you went ahead for me. Okay, sorry. Okay. So, and we'll give you, the article is there and you can see that, and we'll post this stuff up there. And I apologize, 4 o'clock used to be a really good idea in the summertime. In the wintertime, 4 o'clock means everybody on one side of the church gets blinded by the sun. But we will try and work around that one. Okay. I think that's pretty much the history of where we were and how we got to this conversation. Now, tonight, what we're going to do is try and go through all the questions that we've been sent and have the appropriate people, the people who have the most knowledge in that area, answer those questions, hence the panel. And we're going to talk about different areas. We're going to talk about the funds. We're going to talk about the government issues. We're going to talk about how it happens between the POA and this water authority, and try and make it as clear as possible. Now, I know that there's a group of you who that's going to satisfy completely. There's going to be another group of you who wants to know all the nuts and bolts. So we're going to try and find that happy medium tonight, and we'll move on from there and see what we can do. All of you noticed, and I'll say this now, and I'll probably say it again because I'll forget if I don't say it now, that there are forms for you to sign if you agree with the Water Authority in the back and up here on the front. Doesn't mean you have to do that tonight, but we brought them along for those who would like to and who are convinced that we're on the right track. And I already have one. All I need is 3,400 more. Okay, I guess we're off to this, right?
Where'd they go? Well, good evening. My name is Mitzi Lane. I'm the COO at the POA, and behind me we have our Chief Development Officer, Beth Kaburka, as well. We're going to go through a litany of questions. We are going to ask these questions to the panelists, let them give you their answer, and then when we are completely finished with that, we will open it up to the audience for any questions that maybe weren't answered that you may have. So let's see if I can get this to go. My first question is actually for Kevin Stevens. Has the POA researched to see how many new water authorities have tried to form in the state in the last 5 to 10 years? If so, do you know how many were created?
Thank you, Mitzi. Again, I'm Kevin Stevens, for those that I've not met before, and I appreciate you all being here today. We've been working with the Tennessee Association of Utility Districts in helping to research and provide some of the background and history of water authorities in the state of Tennessee. Currently, there are 7 water authorities established in the state of Tennessee. 4 were established through private acts, and 3 were created under separate legislative action. The most recent water authority created in the state is the Cumberland Plateau Water Authority, which was created in 2022. The other water authorities created by private act, 2 were created in 2001, and 1 was created in 2007. So they've been around for a few decades now in different capacities, but there are currently 7, and we're hoping to be number 8 in the state.
Thank you, Kevin. I'll direct this next question to Chet. In considering this option of creating a water authority, did members of the staff or your board of directors visit or meet with representatives from newly formed or current water authorities to gain insight into the pros and cons of their operations?
Yes, POA, whoops, yeah, gotta have a mic. Yes, the POA representatives have met with multiple representatives from the Tennessee Department of Environmental and Conservation, the Tennessee Association of Utility Districts, state legislatures, local utility districts, and local government officials regarding the creation of a water authority. The POA will also meet specifically with those who have existing water authorities to see how their process has proceeded and what have been the upsides and the downsides.
All right, Chet, we'll stay with you. Does the POA have any concept of how LUB and TAS will react to the village establishing its own water authority? Also, has there been any conversations with these utilities about the village initiative?
Yes, I've kind of started a process that I've been maintaining throughout the year, is that I meet with the mayors of both counties and with the directors of LUB and TAS to just let them know what's going on, see what's going on in their world. And I've discussed this in depth with all of them. They are all very much aware of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. And we've discussed how it will or will not affect them. And it's been a good discussion. They've been very helpful and very on board with us doing it. They think it's a good idea for the community.
Thank you. And Chet, I have one more for you. How is the POA going to sell this idea to the legislators in Nashville? I don't think you can say villagers do not want to pay for the infrastructure improvements, so we want to create this water authority. What position is the POA going to take with these governmental bodies?
Let's see if I understand the question right.
Basically, how are you going to sell this to the legislators in Nashville?
Oh, well, the legislators are looking for us to give them what we intend to get out of it. It's a private act, and actually they don't even take that to the floor, per se, to review. That's gone through a committee that looks at it and reviews it. I've already met with our legislator, with our senator, and the lieutenant governor, and discussed this with them in depth. And at least two of them were a part of one of the other water authorities, and they were aware of what we were talking about and reviewed the documents. And they were all for it. They thought it was a good decision to do, and they were more than willing to support that. There isn't, frankly, much selling that needs to be done yet with the legislators. It's whether we as a community want to do this or not.
With that said, depending on how long our meeting goes today, our state representative, Lil Russell, does plan on attending the second half of the meeting. So if any questions may be directed specifically for him, he's hoping to get here by the end of the meeting. So Kevin Stevens, back to you. Will a set of governing documents need to be created for the water authority? Who will create them? Who will need to approve these documents? And will villagers have a chance to review these documents?
Sure, there will ultimately be a series of governing documents that will come into play with the creation of the Water Authority and the ultimate administration of the Water Authority. The first and most significant document is the private act itself. It's really the document that establishes the scope of the authority from the very beginning, what it's able to do and what are the rules and regulations for its operations. Secondarily, the Water Authority is subject to all regulatory requirements in the state of Tennessee, and most particularly subject to regulation by TDEC, Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. A water authority would be subject to TDEC rules and regulations just like any other utility district in the state of Tennessee. Those regulations provide specific standards for water quality, for service standards, and rate requirements. So as a state governmental entity, the Water Authority would be subject to all regulations established by TDEC and any other particular state regulations in play. They'd also be subject to the financial requirements of the state comptroller. They'd have to file annual financial statements and reports for the comptroller's review and oversight. The only other document likely created for the Water Authority would be its set of bylaws, which would essentially be its document for administrative purposes, election of officers and directors, and would provide for the administrative and meeting requirements. But broadly, the two most important documents would be the private act itself, which establishes the authority, and then secondarily, all the regulatory requirements from TDEC.
Thank you. Chet, will the Water Authority have a physical location in the village? Have you given any consideration into where this actual location may be, and how will that help address any issues?
Yes, I think in the beginning, months and as we get started, that they'll have to lease some of our property, specifically at Public Works, to get started. And that's a pretty straightforward process. That's not, ultimately they will have to figure out where they want to either purchase land or lease land to put up their own facility. But in the beginning, it will definitely be leasing part of Public Works to do that, which is completely available. One other thing I forgot to mention in the other question, which I apologize for, is that our number one reason for qualifying for all of this is that, number one, we have a need that is very difficult to meet. And number two, we don't have the ability, based on our documents and who we are as a private entity, to go out and get those matching funds, get the any of the loans or anything else that the government affords utility districts or water authorities or governments. We can't touch those. As a water authority, we could, and that was one of the things the legislator pointed out, that this is the reason why this is a good thing for you, is because it opens up a lot of dollars that you have no access to and never will without being a water authority.
Thank you. Back to Kevin Stevens. The Water Authority is going to have a governing board, correct? And how will this board be chosen? Who is on the board? How long do they serve? Can they be removed? And will they be term limited?
Sure. As currently proposed in the draft of the Private Act, which is going to be submitted to the legislature for consideration and approval, there will be 5 commissioners for the new Water Authority. And those commissioners will be appointed by the elected POA Board of Directors. One of the commissioners will be a sitting member of the POA Board of Directors. The other 4 will be Tellico Village residents who have resided in Tellico Village for at least a year and will be appointed by the POA Board of Directors, who are your elected representatives. In terms of the terms or period of service, all commissioners will ultimately serve 3-year terms following their appointment. However, with the initial commissioners, they're going to be on staggered appointments of 2 and 3 years so that we can create a staggered series of commissioner rollovers. In terms of term limits, there are not term limits presently set forth for the Water Authority in the Private Act. However, commissioners can certainly be removed for cause. This is generally common practice amongst utility districts and water authorities in terms of not setting specific term limits, but rather having regular periods of service and with the opportunity that they may be removed by the Board of Directors in the event of cause.
All right, Kevin, while we're talking about this board, will their board meetings be open to the public? Will they be live streamed similar to our board meetings? And will they also allow for question and answer sessions?
Absolutely. The Water Authority is going to be, when created, a state governmental entity. So as a state governmental entity, the Water Authority is going to be subject to the Tennessee Open Records laws and the Tennessee Open Meetings requirements, also typically known as the Sunshine Laws. So this is a very heightened standard in the state of Tennessee that all public entities have to abide by. Essentially what that means is that all meetings will be open, all documents will be subject to disclosure, and with respect to the Sunshine Law, 2 or more commissioners may not meet in private or deliberate on any Water Authority business. So this will be an extremely open and transparent entity, just like any other governmental entity would be. The only limited exclusion with respect to meetings and or document disclosure is simply for meeting with counsel in private executive session to discuss pending or threatened litigation. So it's an extremely narrow exception in the state of Tennessee. So from a broad perspective, all documents, all records, all meetings are open to the public.
Thank you. Chet, do you know who will oversee the day-to-day operations of this Water Authority?
As we initiate this, first let me state it will not be me. We'd like to select the most qualified individual who has experience in managing some type of city government or city organization like a water authority or a utility district, so that they have the understanding of how to deal with these things and manage it in a way that will be appropriate for us and manage our money well and keep our processes moving forward.
Good. Staying here, Chet. Presently, the village purchases water at a wholesale rate from the LUB and the TAS. For those of you that don't know, that's Tellico Area Service Systems, and they do service our Kahiti neighborhood and the entrance at the 444 and 72, the Emil Aqua area down there. Will this arrangement continue with this new water authority, or are there any other options that we have for these purchases?
Well, initially, our contract will stay the same. The only difference, there'll be a different name on the check that's paying the bill, because we still have to purchase water and sewer services from both of these entities. Once the water authority is in place and the water authority commissioners are in place, they'll have the latitude to explore how else they may want to handle that. That'll be up to them. But initially, our contracts are in place, and they will just roll right through. There won't be any change. We'll still be another wholesale buyer from them.
Good. Next, this question from a villager is for Jim and John. As we mentioned in the welcome, Jim and John are both members of our Public Services Advisory Committee, so I'll let you all kind of decide who you want to answer it. But it says, like many villagers, I was surprised to learn that the water and the sewer projects need to be funded to the tune of $31 million in the next 5 years. For those of us who pay attention to this stuff, for the past 2 to 3 years, we have been told the village will need 13 to 20 million over the next 10 years to tackle improvements in the system. Further, recently, the construction of a holding tank and the erection of a water tower were supposed to lower these to 13 to 20 million expenses, aided by a $2 million government grant. What happened to increase these costs to 31 million over 5 years?
Well, I'll try and cover the history. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll try and cover the history of how we got to this point, and I'll let Jim cover the more technical side of things. We started back in 2017. The POA, hired Jacobs Engineering to do a quick review of the water system. The PSAC and the board were seeing a lot more houses being built in the late teens, and they wanted to make sure we were good. And that initial technical memo, is what it was called, just kind of reviewed the water and sewer mapping and our pump capacities, and came up with the idea that we're going to need to do more studies. They didn't actually go out in the field and do testing. So in 2019, we hired Jacobs again, and they did detailed testing of our system. They put pressure testing devices, they flowed fire hydrants, they checked our sewer plants, our sewer pump stations. And as a result of that, in about 2021, the initial reports were coming out from them for this overall water system needs and sewer system needs. After review of those preliminary reports and pre-final reports by PSAC members and the staff, the final report was published in 2022, and that's how we came up with the costs for things. Because we kind of started in 2017 and then through 2019, estimates were coming in over those years. And then when the 2022 report came out, the costs obviously have gone up. If you've built a house here, you know that the price of any construction material has gone up a lot. So that's why we're seeing increases in prices. I want to point out just some text from the executive summary of the Jacobs report from 2022, and I'll read it here. Jacobs analyzed the existing and future water distribution systems, identifying areas of concern, including chronically low pressure below 40 psi or high pressure above 150 psi, high velocities above 5 feet per second, or high head loss above 3 feet per 1,000 feet. That results in insufficient fire flows, sometimes below 500 gallons per minute, and high average water age greater than 3 days. That refers to the existing water tank. It wasn't being turned over enough. I think following the 2022 study, we entered into a design agreement with Jacobs. While in a preliminary design, additional questions from staff and from PSAC members resulted in asking Jacobs to evaluate whether a elevated water tank would be better than building 5 or 4 new booster pumping stations and upgrading the 5th booster pumping station. And that's why we've gotten into the water tower idea. That may save us money. We thought it was going to save around $3 million. But again, the price of steel is constantly changing. Price of materials is changing. So that's why we've got this budget here of $31 million. I'll let Jim get into the details of our system.
John talked about the water system. At the same time, once that project was started, we started a comprehensive wastewater system for the Loudon part of Tellico Village. Previously, the focus has been on specific short-term issues, complaints primarily on low pressures in certain areas, and little studies were done to fix the little points, but not the entire system. So coming from the water master plan that John talked about, we, in parallel with that, did a wastewater master plan, looking at what is built out in the village, not just 80% of the lots being sold, because we've already surpassed that number. And we also find that people are using more water, particularly during irrigation time. Summertime, early in the morning, most of us have automatic sprinkler systems come on. And when you design pipes and pumps, you have to design for that instantaneous time, because people are also showering and using water for other issues. So we did the water plant plan was well ahead, then we did the wastewater plant, and that came up with a need to do modifications to neighborhood pumping stations, principally along Tellico Parkway, the master pumping station, and we've also discovered we have water flowing into the system, stormwater called infiltration, which is a big fancy engineering term. It just says we're handling stormwater. The other thing is, from the master lift station, which is basically on the corner of the parkway and the road that you take to the yacht club, we are proposing a major storage tank so that, and interestingly, yesterday we had a major break in the line that goes from the master lift station down Maple Hill Road all the way to Loudon. And a leak happened, and who caused the leak? LUB, because they were doing other utilities in the area. And so the tank is set up so that when we get high flows during high rain events, we can store that wastewater and then pump it at a lower rate down to Loudon. And also, should we get a break in the line as we experience, we don't have a catastrophe because we can store wastewater in this tank while we repair things. Currently, we rely on a bunch of vacuum pumps to pump out and to run to Loudon. So I want to also say the plan, and I'm the guy that sort of put together this, what Chet refers to as the $31 million plan. Over a 5-year period, here's the problem you're faced with. On the water side, when do you really need it? The way you come up with that is our greatest demand is when we have long-term dry spells in the middle of the summer. And if anybody here can predict when we're going to have that, you can get a job at any TV station as the meteorologist, because we don't know. On the sewer side, the worst thing we can do is have sewage overflowing. We've had very few incidents. They've all been contained. But as we grow and as we pump more sewage, we have to be ready to deal with these issues. This is a proactive approach as opposed to wait until we have a major catastrophe, because we will not recover from a major catastrophe. So I've outlined what needs to be done by year, pushing it out as far as possible. And you can tweak it a year or two, but we're really looking at a 5-year plan. When John talked about the elevated storage tank, that was a concept that had been kicked around previously and had been dismissed. So we went back and looked at it again, and that concept on the water side is saving around $5 to $7 million in constant dollars. Forget the inflation pressures that we're all seeing in the construction industry. Thank you.
Thank you, John and Jim. I just have a few more questions for Chet, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to Beth Kaburka, who will start with the second round of questions, and she will start with our additional guest here, Scott Gibson, in the middle. So previously, Chet, in a town hall, a comment was made that the village will need to present a budget to the state. Part of the budget will need to include money from our reserve fund. Has the amount of this contribution from the village's reserve fund been determined?
Well, it's a process. We will take the repair and maintenance reserve balance from 2022's budget, take off any water and sewer costs spent in 2023, and what has been added in 2023. We estimate it will be somewhere around $3 million.
Good. Villagers will need to know what amount of reserves are being invested. This will be our sunk cost. Do you have any idea when and how much this amount will be determined?
Yes. The water and sewer reserve balance as of 12/21/22 was $2,490,462. This already includes $1 million and change contribution in 2022. Hence, the bottom line will be in the $3 to $3.5 million range. We will shore up this number at the end of the year as we close 2023.
There is a range of water and sewer related equipment and materials owned by the TVPOA Public Works Department. Villagers have paid for these items. Is the plan to transfer these assets to the new Tellico Village Water Authority? Any idea what the value of these assets are? All of this is information and that it will need to be included in the submission to the state, correct?
The value of the water and sewer systems, per the reserve study, is $238 million. That would be complete replacement. That means everything throughout the community. The Private Act legislation creating a water authority will not contain an itemization of assets to be conveyed to the water authority from the POA. However, the POA will be required to provide in its operating budget, including an itemized list of assets, anticipated operating expenses, to the state controller for approval. We will keep property owners updated as we work on the water authority's operational budget.
Okay, I have one final question. I'm going to turn the floor over to Beth. So in addition to all the equipment and materials, there is a highly qualified workforce with extensive familiarity with the current village water and waste system. This has a value also. Will this point be made to the state when the plan for the new utility is forwarded to the state?
Yes, we recognize unquestionably the value of our employees, and this will be a point to be emphasized in our state submission. It's actually one of the questions the legislators asked me directly.
Great. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Beth Kaburka, who has a series of questions herself, and then at that time we'll turn it over and let the audience ask any questions that we haven't already answered for you today.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, moving along. Scott, this is for you. The Tellico Village Water Authority will be able to seek grants from government and non-government entities. Do we have any idea how many grants have been awarded to Loudoun County, the City of Loudoun, the City of Lenoir City, or Monroe County in the last 5 years? Some counties and cities are good at getting grants, and some are not so good.
Well, I don't know the answer to the number of grants, but I will explain that for everyone in here, that currently almost every utility in the state is getting some form of grant money from the state of Tennessee. As when the $1 trillion plus benefit from the U.S. government was passed a few years ago, some of y'all may be aware, the cities and states and the counties all got certain pots of money. The state of Tennessee got a fairly significant amount, of which they set aside $1 billion. Your water grant that you got for your tank that is being discussed was part of that, but this is a different pot. So the state has $1 billion of grant money out there, and it's a non-competitive process. So cities, utility districts, water authorities have all made applications for some of that grant money, and just about everyone that put the application in has gotten some form of grant money. So that pot is still out there, and there's still, I think, some funds available potentially that could be available. And then on a year-to-year basis, there are grants available both from the state and the federal government that you could be eligible for if you are a water authority. Obviously, as for those who don't know, as a homeowners association, you do not have the ability to apply for those grants. So, the biggest thing about this water authority is the ability to go after these governmental grants and the ability of how we finance them, which we can get into in some questions in the future.
And Scott, this is the first time most of our property owners have seen you. Can you tell them just a little bit about who you are and who you work for and what you all do?
Sure. Cumberland Securities. I work for Cumberland Securities. My name is Scott Gibson. We have an office here in Loudoun County, just across the lake on the other side. We do financial advising to cities, counties, utility districts, water, energy authorities across the state of Tennessee. Currently, we are the financial advisor to both Loudoun and Monroe counties, so we help them from time to time when they want to borrow money, whether it's for schools, jails, roads, and then for utility work, water, sewer, electric, gas systems. We also do work in Maryville, Alcoa, Knoxville, Knox County, West Knox Utility. We do the work for Knoxville Utility Board, so their water, sewer, electric, gas, and fiber systems that are all in the city of Knoxville. We do all that work. And we've done some work for Lenore City in the past, so just an overview of some of our clients that we have helped over the years just in the immediate area.
All right, and this next question's for you. Oops, I went too fast. I understand you were not at the town hall, but I think with your background, you'll be able to answer this a little bit better. At the October town hall, a reference was made that a portion of the funding for the water authority would come from issuing bonds. Does anyone in the finance department have experience with this process, or is there someone with expertise in issuing bonds on the finance advisory committee? Is this going to be a major revenue stream, and how is this going to be handled? And I know you're not on any of those committees, but you can talk about how that you all assist in funding.
Well, it's my understanding the POA has been consulting with not only Cumberland Securities, but TDEC, the Tennessee Association of Utility Districts, other maybe banks and water authorities that are out there about some of these issues. But the issuing of debt to fund these projects is going to be one of the biggest benefits of the water authority. And so based on my conversations with Beth and the staff here, the initial conversation, just to put it into perspective, you have $30+ million that you need to do. You don't have $30 million in the bank, so the most efficient way to put that asset in the ground, those pipes and those towers, is to borrow the money. Well, as a association, you don't have the ability to borrow tax exempt. So you're looking at an interest rate north of 8% in today's market. And two, if you can find a bank that wants to lend the money to you, most banks don't like to lend money longer than 15 years at a fixed rate. You can maybe go 20 or 25, but it's going to be on a variable rate. They potentially could lock a rate in for 5 or 10 years, but then they'll want to reset the rate. Whereas if you're a water authority, you have the ability to go after the grants. You have the ability to go after funding from the U.S. government, USDA rural development. They will do 40-year loans. The current rate, market rate is about 3.75% for 40 years. So that cuts your financing costs down significantly. You also qualify for the state revolving loan funds, which is another pot of money that the state administers. They do 20, 25, and 30-year loans. Currently, a 20-year loan, depending on your metrics as far as income levels and needs and stuff, they have a scoring system. But most of the loans they are making are at sub 1%. So they are loaning money out at 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, so less than 1% for 20 years. Obviously, those are not real market rates like you would get at a bank, but the state controls the money and they determine the rate, like I said, based on various metrics. That money is available to put water and sewer in across the state, so that's why the rate is such a low rate, because they're making sure that people have clean water and sewer available. And then if none of those options are available and we can make application, we can go out and sell traditional tax-exempt bonds like we have done for Loudoun County or Monroe County. We can do the same thing for the Water Authority. We just sold 30-year debt in the last couple of weeks for a city up in Upper East Tennessee, city of Bristol, that I do work with. We sold 30-year debt at less than 4.5%. That's traditional fixed rates locked in at less than 4.5%, which is obviously a lot less than 8.5, 9 that you may get at a bank as a homeowners association. And then we did sell 20-year debt too a couple weeks ago for Sevier County, where we do work, and locked in less than a 4.15 rate. So that's just, that was a long answer, but I wanted to throw some of those numbers out there to give you an idea of what the benefit for this water authority is, because the governance is important and everything, but when you're looking at $31 million, the ability to borrow tax exempt and the ability to go after these state loans and USDA, rural development, federal government financings are probably the biggest benefit because of the financial benefit of having such lower rates or actually having grant money available or whatever. So that is kind of what started the conversation of where we are today. So that was a long answer, Beth, to your question, but I wanted to really emphasize how important it is about the financing and the ability to put this water authority together so we can get there.
Well, this next question's for you too, and you kind of answered a lot of it, but we've talked a lot about grants, bonds, assets, and such. What drives the finances of a water authority are the monthly bills paid by the 5,600 residents and all the commercial water demands. Am I right? And what is the monthly revenue stream for those bills?
Well, I think we got two things going on. So from a revenue stream for the bills, you're going to have you already pay a water and sewer bill on a monthly basis based on your usage. So when you become a water authority, you're still going to get a water and sewer bill. The rate could be the same. The rate could be maybe slightly higher or lower depending on ultimately what happens. I will tell you, to be truthfully honest, if you're going to borrow or have to put $31 million of assets in the ground to fix or bring your water sewer system up, you're probably going to have a rate increase higher than where it is today. Let's just be truthfully honest about where we are. But obviously, if we can finance some of that stuff 30 to 40 years, because the useful life of the pipe you're putting in the ground is 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years, you can spread those payments out, which reduces the amount of monthly income that is needed from the water and sewer system. The bond issues would obviously be major revenue streams for the capital improvements, but bonds cannot be, debt financing can't be used for day-to-day operations of the water authority. So your bills would have to be sufficient to keep the authority on a day-to-day basis, but we can use borrowed money for the debt to put the infrastructure improvements in place, which is a major benefit.
Okay, thank you. All right, Chet, this next one is for you. Sorry, I'm hitting the buttons too fast. At the end of the day, the POA is going to create a detailed business plan and budget to submit to the state, which is going to have all of this information. Will a high-level budget summary covering all of this information be shared with villagers before it's being presented to the state?
Well, I'd love to say that I'm the genius that can figure this out all by myself, but the state actually gives us a template that we have to fill out. And they have very specific categories that have to have dollars and cents applied to and different areas for the water authority. Once that's filled out, that will be posted, of course. You'll have access to see that and understand what the budget's going to be. That's not an issue at all. But I wanted you to know that that budget isn't really, we're creating the dollars and cents. We're telling them what we think we have to invest, what we think the costs will be the first year, all of those things. And again, they have very specific guidelines about where that money's got to go and how it's supposed to be defined and the format and all those things. And once we turn that in, it has been our experience that we'll get it back with 40 dozen changes and corrections and other things. As that process goes, as is true of everything else so far, is that we'll post that back out on the web so everybody has a chance to look at that. And of course, it'll be reviewed by the board and the finance committee in terms of that. However, this process will move away from that into a board function and to the state, because the comptroller will really be driving the boat at that point. If we get to the point where we're putting in a budget for this, the comptroller is really driving what we do and don't do at that point.
Thank you. All right, we're going to change topic focus to talk about the water authority and the process. And this first question is for Kevin Stevens. After looking at the recording of the October Town Hall meeting, I am confused. Why do we just need 51% of property owners to agree to the water authority and not the 2/3?
No, Chet already touched on this to some extent in his opening remarks, but the distinction here again is we are conveying a common property asset, that being the village's water and sewer infrastructure, to the new water authority, as opposed to any amendment of the declaration itself, which requires 2/3 approval. There's a specific provision in the declaration, Article 8, Section 4I, which expressly authorizes the association to transfer all or any part of the common properties, which would include the water system infrastructure and associated reserves, to any public agency, authority, or utility where an instrument is signed by the POA members entitled to cast a majority of all votes. So that's, again, the requirement that you need 50% plus one vote in order to get the majority consent and approval of the members. The process of conveying these assets does not require any amendment or alteration of the governing documents. And that's why there's the distinction between the criteria of the necessary percent for membership consent. And I do want to point out, with respect to the majority approval, it is one membership vote per lot. So we need a majority of all lot owners with one membership vote per lot in order to consent to the transfer of the assets.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Staying with you. Are there any clearances required from TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, or TRDA, Tellico Reservoir Development Agency, to create the village's own water authority?
The short answer is no. No consent is required from either TVA or TRDA in this instance, because we're going to obtain the consent from the legislature through the private act, as we discussed. That being said, we have briefed TRDA regarding the proposed water authority, and they are fully supportive of this process.
Thank you. All right, Chet. Talking about government groups, what have the discussions with the Representative Russell and Senator McNally have been done? The village will be looking to these gentlemen to help push this through their respective bodies in Nashville. What is the reaction to the proposal?
Well, I've met with all those individuals on an individual basis and had long conversations with them about this, and they've reviewed the actual document, and they asked me all the pertinent questions. What are you going to do with your staff? What are you going to do with your equipment? What are you going to do with how and why? Why do you want this? What's the purpose? And we've talked about the dollars and cents, and they're the ones who pointed out some of the benefits that I didn't need to help them explain. It was more of, oh, that's why you want this, because you'll be able to get those grants, you'll be able to get that funding. And all of them were very supportive. I have to say there was never a sales job. It was more just an explanation. This is why we want to do it. And they go, it makes a lot of sense, let's do it. So they were all very, very supportive and behind it. I had no negative input at all, actually, from any of them.
All right, also for you, does Loudoun County and Monroe County mayors support the authority?
Absolutely. I met with both mayors individually and had a long discussion with them, told them exactly what I was doing and why I was doing it, and they understood it and support it. And to be honest, there's nothing they're losing. We still have to buy water from them. We still have to buy our sewer processing from them. Nothing on their side actually changes. It doesn't go away. So in that regard, they don't really have any changes for them. We go about the same business. They're still getting a check, and it's just got a different name on it.
Perfect. This is also for you, Chet. Will the POA create a business plan? Will it be shared with villagers before it's sent to Nashville?
Along with the budget is the financial plan, and the business plan has to be attached to that. That's all one, it's two documents, but it's one submission to the state about what we're going to do and why we're going to do it that way. So yes, all of that will be posted, and then it will go to them. Keep in mind the timing on that is after the legislation, not before.
All right, also for you, Chet. At the town hall, an approach was discussed of getting 54 villagers to visit 100 homes each to obtain signatures to accomplish getting the 51%. Will these people be educated on the nuisances of water authority plans? I suspect they'll be knocking on the door of villagers who have no concept of what we are talking about and no need of or will be in need of an elevator speech.
Absolutely. Any volunteers we can educate to help their neighbors understand the water authority, that's what we want to do. Frankly, that's what this meeting is about, is to educate you so that you're not in any way blind into what we're looking at trying to do. And the more you know, the more effective this process will be for the entire community. But to your specific question, yeah, we want to have training, and as we get closer to that time when we need to have all the signatures in, we will require, or request, we'll never require, we will request homeowners to be volunteers, and they'll have a training to be sure that they understand what they're talking about. Do they understand the water authority? And by that, they can help those homeowners that they go to who have no idea what we're talking about, and be able to give them guidance on the water authority and ask for their signature in a way where the people know what they're talking about.
Perfect. All right, Kevin, this next one is for you. Will the volunteers who help collect signatures need to be notaries? I have needed stuff notarized before and found it difficult in the village.
Short answer is no. They don't have to be notarized. As I mentioned earlier, Article 8, Section 4I is where the requirement for the member consent is found in the declaration. That merely requires an instrument signed by POA members entitled to cast a majority of the votes. That section does not expressly require any notarized signature. That being said, although there's no notary requirement, the POA will certainly go through the process of verifying names and addresses of all signatories to ensure the validity of the consent. Ultimately, this document is not something that's recorded or provided to the state or any other entity. It's something that the POA maintains in its own records for its own purposes to demonstrate and memorialize that the proper membership consent was obtained.
Thank you. All right, Chet, back to you. How are you going to recruit the people to get the signatures from residents?
Well, we already have several list of villagers and volunteers to assist in the door-to-door campaign. We'll be reaching out to other organizations like Neighborhood Watch and COPS and others to see if they are willing to assist in sharing the information as well and getting it to the different homeowners and allowing them to sign. One of the things that, and I emphasize this simply because it's been in the past a question, none of this will happen without your vote. None of this will happen without your knowledge. None of this will happen without your understanding. And I need to keep saying that until sooner or later you believe me.
All right, also for you in that same, oh, I went too far. Nope, didn't. Sorry. How are you going to, oh, it's out of order. Sorry, I'll come back to that one. I know the whole purpose of starting a water authority is to manage our infrastructure expenses differently. Will this potentially lower our monthly water rates? And that's for you, Chet.
Yeah, probably not.
Maybe.
It's a little bit early to really have that discussion, to be really direct. I don't know the answer to that. I'll just be direct. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how it's going to affect it. What happens is we get into the overall budget of the Water Authority and the maintenance and the long-term maintenance and how these grants come in and how it will affect the Water Authority's need for funding. That will all play into that. But immediately, in the absolute near future, I don't think you're going to see any change one way or the other.
Okay. A lot of different ideas have been broached through the Q&A session, and it was suggested at the town hall meeting that the POA hoped to have the new authority in place by next July. Is that realistic? And that's for Chet.
Well, we hope to have it approved in March if we get the votes to do that. We hope to have it approved in March. And the legislature, one of the things they brought up is if we're going to do this and they want to see it move ahead. They don't want it to be lagging behind. Most water authorities, most water districts operate on a financial year of starting with July 1. And so because of that, that's the date we're looking for. It wasn't some number I came up with or a date I came up with. That's how they normally work. That would be our goal. If things happen or things don't happen, then we may have to adjust that. But that's where the July 1st came from. That's just the financial year that most water authorities operate under.
Okay. The next two are also for you, Chet. What happens if I don't want to sign this agreement?
Nothing. Yeah, nothing happens. And if the whole community says we don't want this, again, nothing happens.
Is there a chance the state legislation will deny a request to form our own water authority?
I guess if I were to be really, really, really direct, I would have never brought this to you if I hadn't already had a conversation with them about the validity of this. And I'm completely confident and have their confidence that we're on the right track and this is the right thing to do for the community. This would be a grand waste of time and if I had not already secured and understood that that was going to happen.
All right, so now we're going to open the floor from audience questions. If there's a question you don't feel like we've answered, we did have some other questions come in that we weren't able to finalize answers to. We will be updating those to a web page that we'll be sharing in next Tuesday's Telegram, and we will keep the Q&As running throughout this entire process as we add new ones. And we'll share those also in the Gram. So we would like to stick to the Water Authority for this first question and answer section, and we'll have an others topic if someone comes and has something besides the Water Authority that they would like to talk to. As you approach the mic, please state your name and let us know where you live. We'd appreciate it. And then if you have a specific question for one of the panelists, if you will make that known as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Mike Robbins, Mialac Warrior. I'm the Vice President of Advocacy for our HOA. Sir, thank you very much for your clarity today. A lot of us probably had questions about the financial positives of this arrangement. You were not long-winded. You were, in fact, very informative, and I'm sure many of us appreciated it. Quick question, Chet. Are there any negatives to this that you're aware of that could come up? And in the foreseeable future, there was a lot of positive money transpiring that was brought up today, but would our members be looking at any kind of special assessment with all of this in the future? Thank you.
Well, first of all, it would not be the POA that would be billing you, so a special assessment would not be the correct term. And as far as I am aware, the Water Authority would have to have TDEC's approval to be able to come to you for additional money as their customers. But the short answer is no, the POA does not foresee you having to have any special assessments or any of that kind of funding coming at that point.
Hi, my name is Rich Krawczyk, and my question is sort of multifaceted. I can see the big advantage that creating this water authority, it opens up a lot of funding and grants to us, so I'm not sure I quite understand that magically creating this authority we can get access to all this money, but we're still going to be getting water from LUB and using their treatment centers for our waste. And so aren't we going to be taxing their facilities even more and more as we grow? And how are we going to handle that if they just come back and say, hey, we're not going to provide you water anymore or sanitation. You're a water authority. You do it yourself. You build your filtration plant. You build your water treatment facility, and you do it yourself. Now, is that a possibility, or are we just going to keep buying water from LUB and have this authority only in place just to get us more funding for managing our system?
So far, I am working on multiple alternatives of buying water and sewer so that we're never caught by one supplier. But I don't see any reason why LUB wants to turn away the millions of dollars we pay them. I don't see TASC. In fact, TASC is currently working with us and looking about how they need to upgrade their plant to allow us to buy more water from them at, interestingly enough, lower rate than LUB is selling it. And so we're pursuing every option, which will all go right over into the water authority. That will not change in how we process. The thing that I see that is confusing for you all to adjust to is that it's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is that the POA, because of who is on that county, that commission process, will still control the type of service you receive here in this community. The bad news is it will be difficult for you to immediately discern POA, governmental entity, water authority. And they're two different groups of people, and they have two different groups of priorities and two different groups of rules that they have to play by. And so that's a key thing that everybody needs to really begin to get their head around, and it will change, and that will be difficult in the beginning for everyone to understand. The short answer is no. I don't think we're going to ever be in a position where they will turn us off. Sure, yeah, and we already have long-term contracts, as he pointed out, so they aren't going to turn away, they aren't be able to walk out of that in the first place. And frankly, I've been building those relationships with those two different departments to where they don't want to be back. There's no animosity there. They want to help us, they want to work with us, they consider us a partner as opposed to just somebody who's giving them a hard time.
Margie Kraft from Coyote Subdivision. I have a couple clarifying questions first. So is this just for Tellico Village residents only, this authority?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you know if we have any lead pipes in the community?
I would say no, but I can't say that. I don't believe we have any lead pipes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
none from the guys down there who know.
So if water becomes scarce, we're in droughts and whatnot, do private authorities have the same priority as anybody else going to like LUB or TAS for water?
When we buy water from them as a, what's the word I'm looking for? Wholesale, thank you. Wholesale purchaser, we already are at a higher level in terms of priority.
But if they don't have the water?
Well, they can only sell us what they have. So whether the priority is there or not, I mean, and all of them have balances. All of them have, the reason we have a contract is there's a certain amount they have to sell us. And there's a certain amount we have to buy.
Okay.
And so that protects both of us, I guess, is a better way of putting it. So yes, there is a lowest level they can sell us, but that's why I want to have more than one source of water, more than one source of sewer.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Dave Landrum, Tokewood Neighborhood. Do the current billings of the water and sewer bills we pay monthly cover any and all expenses currently would be covered by this water authority, or do our additional budgets or additional things paid by the POA?
Okay, I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, can you ask that again?
Okay. We currently pay our water and sewer bills on a monthly basis. That pays for a portion or all of what the water authority would have authority for. Or does the POA budget currently pay for some of the sewer repairs, some of the employees that go out and do activities that support the water and sewer?
I think I understand your question, so I'll put it this way. The current fees for water and sewer should fund the water authority without any of the other funds that we use, because what makes this whole process difficult, and you'll see this when you get to see the budget and some of the other things that go along with it, is that we are putting in, that's wonderful, we are putting in funds for capital improvements. But in terms of the actual operations of water and sewer, yes, water pays for water.
Okay. So the capital will still have to be put in.
The capital is what they're going to have, the water authority is going to have to go over.
Well, I understand. So the POA will not have to put that whatever million, million and a half, whatever it is, on an annual basis. It'll be the water authority instead.
Correct.
So I'll give you an estimate, and I want to emphasize this again, an estimate, because we've just started tearing all these little spider webs apart and trying to come up with a number. Right now, we're estimating, based on our reserve study, that we would have to put in somewhere between $8 and $10 million a year, right? We've talked about that ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Well, if you pull all that stuff out, water and sewer, the expenses, the capital expenses coming down the road for that, it means that we would have to put in more like $4 to $6 million a year.
Okay. I don't understand that answer. Could you try to explain
I'll put it again. Right now, currently, in our budget, we have plans to put in $8 to $10 million a year. Part of that $8 to $10 million a year has to do with water and sewer. You good so far?
Okay. So
Okay.
Roads and everything else are the balance.
Right. Everything else is included in that, too, as well. So if you take out water and sewer, we're looking at more like $4 to $6 million a year.
Because keep in mind, reserves are not just for capital. They're for maintenance of current assets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that means the water authority would have to replace those funds by increased billings. You can't take it out of one
Borrow.
pocket and not give.
No, that's not the way it
sense.
works, and I'm sorry that we didn't make that clearer sooner. The water authority has certain funds that they can go and get for operations, but they can only use that for operations. Most of the funds, and Scott, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, most of the funds that they can get have to go toward the capital expense.
I'm not questioning that the water authority is a good idea or a bad idea. I think it's a good idea. What I'm asking is, currently our POA monthly dues, annual dues, part of it goes to a reserve account, which I don't think is actually an account, but a reserve account, which is $4 to $8 million by your discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. The water authority is still going to have a portion of those funds in order to maintain or has to have additional billing. Will we get a decrease on one side equal to the increase on the other?
We don't really know yet.
I don't know that yet, but there's going to be definitely a decrease on one side and an increase on the other. But I need to be clear here, though, because I can see that this is still not. There is a demarcation line between the association and the water authority. When the water authority takes over, whatever funds we have to give them, and we've already discussed that a little bit, $3 million, whatever it is, then at that point, our reserves no longer, nor can I ask you for money as a POA for water and sewer. So that's why your capital reserves will go down. How much, I don't know yet.
I understand that, but then the water authority has to have those funds replaced either by grants, by
Correct.
debt,
Yep.
or by billings.
Yes.
Those are the only three ways it gets money.
Yes.
So if we currently pay in to the POA, the only way the water authority can replace that on the short term, unless this gentleman in the center is really good on grants, is by billings or debt.
Or debt, yeah, that's correct.
Yes, you're going to have the decrease on the POA side. You're going to need money for capital on the other side. Currently, you're paying for your capital by having annual buildings and turning those annual buildings into pipe to put in the ground or fixed pipe that's in the ground to solve your problems. By becoming a water authority, you can do the same thing, but you also have the ability to go out and borrow money. And so instead of having to have an annual assessment and turning that cash into pipe every year, you can go out and borrow the money. Of course, you would have to make the debt payments, but those debt payments are spread out over 30 or 40 years. And so the answer is there could be an increase on the other side, but by spreading those payments out with the debt, you're making that increase probably significantly less than the decrease on the other side.
I'm not questioning that. I think the Water Authority is a better way to manage it than the POA. What I'm trying to get someone to, or for me to understand is, once this is done, how is the Water Authority, short-term, going to make those payments with the small reserves that they will be given? Or will there be a large increase in water bills in order to make those payments? That's what I'm trying to understand.
I think in answer to your question, I'm going to step back to say I have to put an operating budget into the comptroller, right?
Yes.
Well, TDEC controls all the costs. One of the things you may, this is terrible. One of the things you may not realize is that there are no controls on the POA and what we charge you for water and sewer. None.
Well, I understand that.
So, but when you go to the Water Authority, there's all kinds of controls that they control, and they will not allow you to get in that position. But in our budget that we present to them, we're going to have to qualify and quantify, okay, this is what it's going to cost us, the first year, and why it's going to cost us this the first year, and they're going to play 40 questions with us to make us defend it. And within that budget, we're going to have to say, in the first year, we have enough money to do X, Y, and Z based on the money that we were conveying to them and the fees they will be receiving on a monthly basis from the water and sewer that they sell.
Okay, so
the reality is
I think I understand.
So let me put it in another way. The first person I'm going to hire is the person who's going to oversee the Water Authority. The second person I'm going to hire is the guy who writes all the grants.
Now, I have a different question. Within the last 60 days, we are going to use the utilities for trash bills. The Water Authority is going to bill us for trash.
Currently, that has not been decided, number one. And number two, I'm not sure that we could muddy the waters with a POA charge in the middle of the Water Authority. I would
strongly encourage us not to muddy the waters. Make the Water Authority very clean.
Oh, no. No, I couldn't agree with you more on that. The Water Authority has to be separate. I don't ever want there to be a crossing of the ways, so to speak.
And just to add on, I don't think a regulatory authority would allow a water authority to invoice for sanitation services. So that they're going to be two separate deals in the future. There's no question.
I just think that it's ironic that the POA, who is researching this and encouraging us to go to a water authority, is still considering, or considered very recently, of using the same group for a billing purpose for not part of the water authority. I just think that's ironic.
No, it's called convenience, but you're right.
All right, I just want to add too, in case someone wants to get in line, is Representative Russell has been able to join us. So if you had a question for him, he is here now. Go ahead.
Hi, Doug Smart, live in Tanasi Shores. I just got here not too long ago, so I'm just new to all this, but I wanted to know, by creating this water authority, is it going to cost the villagers any money anywhere, whether it be a line item on the water bill or POA, which you said it wouldn't, but, and the other reason you're getting this is to get grant money, which isn't a guarantee, correct? And how much it'll cost for each project or cover it?
Well, that's all the stuff we really don't know yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that I have
And
the answer in the beginning is you should not see, in terms of the impact on your own wallet, for lack of a better way of putting it, you shouldn't know the difference.
Nothing. And is this the only option? Is what about letting Loudoun County take it over? And what if you don't get your votes? What happens at that point?
I'm sorry again?
What happens if you don't get your 2/3, whatever? What happens after that? What's the other option?
Well, it's 50%, not 2/3. Please don't confuse the crowd.
Or whatever.
Already got it down to 50% here. Don't get it higher. The reality of it is unless the community sells me on the fact that they think this is a bad idea and they don't want to touch it, I'm going to go till I get 51%, because it's that important.
What happens if it doesn't go? What's the plan from there?
Then it stays as is, and we'll have to find another way to come up with the money, and that will be out of your pocket.
And the Loudoun County is not an option? Or is there other options?
Well, most of these counties don't want to take us over. I'll put it another way. Loudoun County, in my conversation with them, would love to take us over after we've invested the $31 million to correct it. That was their exact words.
Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Cap Purvis. I want to commend everybody sitting up there, and Chet, yourself, and everybody that's worked on this, Kevin, and that. It's a very well thought out proposal, and you've answered all my questions. The only one question I do have, Chet, this is perhaps for you, and I know that Cooper unfortunately didn't do us any favor when they negotiated the original agreement with LUB for waste treatment. They didn't put any volumes in there, so that when we get this water infiltration that Jim talks about, and we have to treat our sewage, we do not take precedent in standing in line to have our sewage treated. And we've had situations in the past that I'm well aware of where we couldn't pump to Loudoun to treat our waste. And therefore, we're in a very ticklish position. And hopefully, I know that when you've had discussions with LUB, that maybe we can possibly, if a water authority or whatever, get that volume issue addressed. I know that's what's leading this charge, to have a very large storage area for our waste so that it doesn't back up, i.e. to the other pumping facilities. Do you feel that the water authority will have any more power in the future, supposedly, in negotiating with LUB or TESS than what we as POA have had going, in the history?
The answer is I'm not sure. I think that over the last year I have improved the relationship with them to where I'm at least having civil conversations with them. We talk about and try and help each other out with different problems. They give me a heads up when there's certain problems. Their road department works with our public works. I mean, things have improved significantly. In terms of negotiating that, right now, and this may or may not have any meaning, it is my understanding, and Henry's here, he may have a better point of view on this, but with the LUB utility guys, they're under the gun from TDEC to get things done. And TDEC is kind of chasing them about, you've got to get this done. Yeah, we've given you this grant, why isn't this completed? The list goes on. And so we're not their priority. And we have to work with them as a partner so that we stay at least in the group where they want to help us. They want us to be that way. And so moving forward and figuring out our contracts, I at least think it will be a partnership kind of discussion, not a adversarial discussion.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, the last estimates are, I think, around $6 million, Jim, you could correct me, to build this storage facility that, theoretically would have hopefully never had to do that had we had a decent agreement from Cooper moving forward.
Sure. Well, it's an interesting thing. Cooper actually sent me an email. He took umbrage with my comment at the last. I have no idea who watches these things. It's amazing to me. I'm just throwing that out there. But he took umbrage with the fact that I said that their original design did not count for the McMansions that are being built here. And he said, no, we accounted for all of our homes to be within 2,000 to 3,000 square foot. And I wanted to email him back, but I didn't, that we have homes who have a garage that size. And so that's why I'm saying that the whole concept there is you're right. They didn't think that through.
Yeah. Thank you very much again for all your work.
Bob Thompson, Tenassie. Will the Water Authority have the right to do anything about the excessive drainage during rains? Because apparently there's places that you get twice as much sewage as the area uses.
Water infiltration.
I'm
Talking
sorry.
about water infiltration in the system.
Oh, you mean the infiltration and the water drainage? Well, the Water Authority will have to take over those responsibilities. Nobody else has brought it up, and I think the fire chief is already gone. One of the other things the Water Authority will have to address is all the fire hydrants and the use of the water within the community and that sort of thing. So they have a whole bunch of things, but yes, the drainage, any of our waste systems, they're going to have to be in control of and address.
Is there a schedule been set up where you will start with this and then move to that and that and that?
Yeah. Jim, you want to talk about your projects real quick?
Yes, on the I&I issue, we started about 2 years ago, and every one of your tanks and pumps at your house has been inspected. Some of them have been fixed, and there's a priority moving forward to reduce our I&I even more.
Well, I mean, as far as pipes in the ground, have you got a schedule set up that you'll do this first, that second?
Currently, we are not have a schedule for replacement of existing pipes. But I can tell you on the I&I thing, again, the Water Authority has, their singular focus is water and wastewater. It's not diluted by other things that the POA board has to deal with.
And then will this creation eventually inevitably lead to us becoming a town?
I don't ever want to hear that again.
Neither am I. Okay.
I once knew a trainer that said the brain is only going to absorb what the butt can, so I'll make this quick. My name is Ralph Arata. I also serve with Beth on the Communication Advisory Council, and this is obviously going to be a very big communication challenge, and with Chet here, I would like to just make a request that perhaps he help us become self-educated so we can better employ the tools we have to educate the residents of Tellico Village, and that's it.
Thank you.
I thought you were going to ask if Kahidi residents are included in this, because I got that online. Yeah. So that is a question from online chat. Is Kahidi included in this?
Yeah, everybody, Kahidi is included in this. They're all part of that process.
Good evening, since we're now past afternoon. Mike Lynch, currently a resident of Mialacqua, and hopefully a year from now, a resident of Coyote. Over the course of the last hour and a half, many of the questions that I had crafted as I sat here have been answered, but there are two that remain. One is, according to the stats that I see on a monthly basis, there are approximately 240 homes in process every month. What kind of disruption, if any, will occur during the transition period? Because as someone who will be building a house, knock on wood, I don't want to get caught with the POA and the Water Authority, or the lack of neither at a particular moment in time, fighting over whether they're going to connect me.
Yeah, that's one of those processes in the operational part that has to be determined. But in thinking that through, we've already determined that there will be a demarcation line where, as of this date, if your home is approved, so your home's already been approved, they're building it, you're not in this group. If your home is approved after this date, the Water Authority will handle it. Anything approved before that, which, you know, may be December of next year by the time it's actually getting to or built, is still going to be handled through the processes you started with the POA.
Thank you. The second thing is, in the resolution which you'd like us to sign, it says legislature is introducing, and Chet, you made an allusion to there being an actual document.
Yes.
For those of us who are interested, may we see a copy of the drafted legislation now?
It's not ready.
Unless somebody
Not the TDEC application, not the budget.
No, I understand. We have
Not ready yet, Chet, but it will.
it's not, the draft is still in draft form. Once it is ready, again, I'll restate this. Currently, it's in draft. So putting it up there would be of no value to you at this point. Once we have completed it and we're ready to it, it will go on the website and you will be notified that it is there for you to review.
Thank you.
All right, then we have and I don't know if we know the answer to this, but it's fine. I'm going to answer one real quick online. Will our water authority size compare to the other 7 water authorities in Tennessee? Do we know for sure how big those are?
I don't know offhand. I don't know offhand, but that's, as we move forward in this process, we've been focused on so many of the legislative components and the legal components, but we're going to start to get more into the operational components as we proceed. And one of our objectives is to start working with some of these existing water authorities on some operational issues to learn how best to make that transition. So right now we don't know too much about them. We've talked to them about some financing on the front end, and they've shared some important insight as to what they've been able to do from a financing standpoint. But we'll continue to get into the operational issues and lean on them heavily, as well as the Tennessee Association of Utility Districts.
Thanks. All right, now you can go. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Harry Rucker. I'm from Toqua in the HOA. I appreciate the opportunity to ask questions. Will the Water Authority have its own HR department and financial department, or will it be able to, or could it buy those services from the POA?
Yeah. In the beginning, they will be buying those services. So yes, in all reality, they're going to be buying those services.
Thank you.
But the goal would be for them to move into their own.
Steve Schneider from Tomotley Shores. Chet, I'd like to add to one of your responses. When the question was, what happens if you don't get 50% plus 1? And you said nothing. Well, not really. What will happen is your monthly water bill will have an additional surcharge. And you had meant, if you take a look at 31 million over 5 years, that's $100 a month surcharge on top of your water and sewer bill. So there will be something that will happen different if we don't go this route, because you got to pay for the 31 million.
You're correct. And my remark of saying nothing means nothing will happen with the water authority. Not nothing will happen within the community, because water and sewer is never going away. We have to take care of it. We have to understand where we are and do our best to prepare for that.
Hi, my name is Pat White, and I live in 304 Skiatook
Circle,
Loudon, Tennessee. Hooray, everybody knows. They drive by 24 hours a day just to look at the house. What I read on social media, and I've heard somebody allude to it here today, is that, and this is to Jim and John, because they're property owners and they know. They've been dealing with this a lot longer than I have. We're not replacing our water and sewer system, are we? Oh, you didn't have a microphone on.
We are not.
Okay, so what I read is all of this is going to replace a broken system. Is it broken?
Nope.
Same, either one. I already know the answer.
It is not broken.
Okay, now here comes the next question. Just like Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, Columbia, Tennessee, Knoxville, Loudon, all of us, there is major cost increases that have hit us. There are major upgrades that people need. There are broken pipes. There are, what do you call those things, line flushers or testers, and all this stuff that we have to do to maintain. And like for all of us that live up in the Skiatooks, we have a typically lower water pressure because we're up high. And the people that live down at the lake have a higher water pressure, and that has to be balanced. Otherwise, I get no water and they have their pipes break. That all has to be maintained. Is that the 31 million? Yeah, it is.
The 31 million allows you that live on top of the hill to have a minimum of 40
PSI, and the people that live on the lake to have a maximum of 130 PSI.
Right.
That's what it allows you to have on a routine basis.
Right, and it allows me and every other property owner, when I turn on the water to make coffee in the morning, it comes out. And when I flush the toilet, it goes away. Correct?
So Pat, let me throw in some numbers here to your point. You asked earlier, does this mean we're replacing our water and sewer? According to our reserve study, it is $238 million for our entire water and sewer system.
Yeah,
so
and if-
31 million is not even in the ballpark.
No, and if we had to replace $238 million worth of water and sewer, we better move in a hurry. Because all of this talk about going up in rates, that's $238 million property owners would have to pay for, and you cannot pay for that. So then it goes back to Knoxville, Memphis. Everybody has the maintenance and the maintaining the standards and repairs and increased costs, correct? So one more time, are we replacing our water and sewer system?
No.
Okay, good.
All right, Chet. What's next? What's next, Chet?
Okay, what's next? Wait, I have one more question before we go next. I would have been disappointed if she hadn't come.
Teresa Reed, Tokwa. Great presentation. Years ago, I used to sell investments on the retail side, and this is really for the audience. In your investment accounts, you have bonds. Federal, state bonds are great to buy. Utility bonds are great to buy. I really see the exemplary benefit of what you guys want to do. On my end, I'd just like to see clearly, you know, the transfer of the $3 million plus all that stuff. And then I'd want to know if, once we have a water authority, can it be convoluted with other cities? Could, you know, Lenore City come in and say, "God, you guys are doing such a great job. We want to jump on board with you." I mean, those could be good things as long as it was clear that it's not going to cost us. Steve Snyder said $100 a month. It's true. It would cost us all $100 a month for 6 years to come up with this $31 million. So these guys are presenting an opportunity that really is viable. The biggest plus is they have access to go get money. And again, when I would sell bonds, TVA bonds, I have no problem telling you, I can get you 5% on a TVA bond, and they're going to pay you back because everybody needs water, and they're going to pay their bills. And if they don't pay their bills, you guys go put an assessment on the house, you get your money. It's a very safe investment. So this is a great idea. And I just wanted to come up and clarify because I'm not sure that I was hearing what I hopefully just said to all these guys. Thank you.
Thank you as always. So what's next? Get a pen and paper and start signing these things. I need 3,400 of you to sign because I already have one. Go ahead, sir. You've got a question.
I'm Ken Hampson. I live in Tenasseee. I've been on a finance committee in the past for 6 years. And clearly you're trying to minimize the cash flow of property owners over the next 5 years. And I mean, that's the goal. I've heard Chet use the word lease a number of times for land, for equipment. And I'm looking at this as more like a stock split and a company is setting up a separate company. And I look forward and say that company is going to have not just a manager, it's going to have its own HR, its own finance. It needs its own building for offices and equipment, and obviously equipment.
Absolutely correct.
And that's all going to be cost downstream. I clearly believe that needs to be cranked into your analysis, but there's no question in my mind the cost for water and sewer is going up.
As soon as I have an answer for you that I can validate, I'll give that to you.
Mike Braddock, Coyote area. I'll keep this short. I believe it would be very beneficial as you go forward to obtain the signatures for the POA to publish a statement of information. There's been a lot of information shared here tonight. I think there are still open questions. I think having that document in the hands of those you are asking to solicit for signatures or to go ahead and proactively send that out will be helpful to folks. An area that I think has not been touched on enough tonight, and I don't think we want to get into all the details here, but the governance is around the Water Authority District. As I understand how you have presented this, you would have, all of us would be basically members of a Water Authority District, but have no say in the governance except through the existing POA board. Because the existing POA board would be appointing the commissioners or whatever you call them.
Sure.
So I think folks need to understand that. I think the other thing that needs to be explained is today we are not, if I'm understanding correctly, subject to all the TDEC requirements that a water authority district would be subject to.
You are correct.
And I think that bites off another set of rules and regulations. I'm just making sure we go forward with this with eyes wide open, because this is going to perhaps put more burdens and requirements on a water authority district that today we don't have to deal with as a POA managing these assets. And so all I'm suggesting is let's make sure that everyone understands the pros and cons. There's a lot of pros from a financing standpoint, I get that. But I hope we educate the community about what's coming with this, because there's no free lunch, so to speak. There is a cost that comes with it. So that's my suggestion, and those are two areas that I think would be very helpful to better explain. I don't want to keep people here in their seats tonight to go through all that.
All right, sir. We
All
got
right,
it.
thank you for the segue, because that was my next thing is, over the next week or so, you are going to be receiving in the mail a letter that summarizes pretty much what this meeting covered, and also is going to direct you to a website that has a ton of information that you can be brought up to speed. And as we continue to add more information, it will all be in one place, so you're going to have one place to go. So in your mailbox soon, you will be getting a letter that explains everything along with another consent form. But if you want to take action tonight, Chet, what do they need to do?
Please pick up a pen, go to either this area, or the back, and sign us up. And as we move forward, again, I know I'll keep saying it till you believe it. We're going to keep everything that we're doing, all the plans, all the steps we're taking, what's next. It'll be in every one of my town halls as we move forward. But once that web page is established, you can go there at any time and see any updates that have been there, because we will keep continuing to update that. We don't want to do any of this in the dark. We don't want any of you believing that somehow we're doing anything secretively or without your understanding. That's why I keep burning up your time at these town halls, trying to help you understand exactly what we're up to and why. Have a good evening.
No other topics? All right.